Today we're getting into the latest Tesla news, including Tesla's revolutionary new battery, Tesla canceling multiple products, new stock ratings, and more, so let's get into it. First up today, as Tesla often does, they're introducing a new software feature, and this time it's a pretty interesting one. They're introducing a new feature to enhance driver awareness of nearby emergency vehicles. This is emergency siren detection, where the vehicle will automatically detect and alert the driver to nearby sirens. And this helps both in autopilot and manual driving in recognizing and yielding to approaching emergency vehicles. Basically, the alert mechanism here is that upon detecting a siren, the media volume will lower, and then an alert will appear on the vehicle's display to notify the driver. The way that Tesla does this is with sound detection, and so sound detection data remains with the car and is neither saved nor transmitted unless data sharing is enabled by the user. But that's because it's using the microphones inside the vehicle to detect this, which means that in theory it should be listening all the time, just like many of your smart assistants do, or even your phone, when it's waiting for a command to truly listen in. Here it's probably the same thing, and it's just waiting to hear a siren, and then it will enable something on screen to warn you, and then warn the autopilot system as well. As far as implementation goes, this is currently dormant in software update 2025.8, but it's expected to be enabled soon through a server-side configuration or an upcoming update. So you may not need an update to get this enabled, or it may come in the next update. Next up today, some very important news in the very important space of EV battery technology. Long-term EV customers want two main things. First would be just a longer range available on all EVs across the board, so that you don't really have to buy into a standard range car at a lower price, and maybe that 300-mile standard across the board for long-range cars ends up becoming something more like 400 miles. Now, many EV owners today would argue it's not entirely necessary, and that's probably because they have their charging sorted. But for people who live in apartments or don't want to charge all the time, it is important to have a longer range, especially until we get much faster charging speeds. So longer range is achieved primarily through a couple methods. First would be just overall efficiency throughout the vehicle, including the pack itself. This is how that energy gets utilized, and then how energy dense the battery pack itself can be. Then there's an increase in battery pack size if needed, but this is oftentimes limited by cost because batteries are expensive. Then, of course, on the other side of that, people want faster charging. Basically, people want both of these things in tandem, but we're getting there slowly because this technology does advance fairly slowly, especially at scale. Tesla has been laser focused on scaling all of their products, so we haven't seen much from them in terms of faster charging, at least for their most popular cars. We will see faster charging coming to the Cybertruck over in Q3 with the latest superchargers, and the Cybertruck only, but for the Model 3 and Y, even with their refreshes, they're stuck at a maximum speed of 250 kilowatts. Then from Tesla, we also haven't seen things like solid-state batteries, which some view as the true future here. Again, for Tesla, nothing matters until it's truly scalable, and we can see this very clearly with their approach to self-driving. They are relying on cameras there and have purposely not included LiDAR because, at least when they first started, it made no sense from a scaling perspective. And this is a tech which many commenting on this video would argue is still necessary for full self-driving, but Elon Musk and Tesla says that it is not. In any case, Tesla has been working on batteries for quite some time. In fact, their Giga Nevada factory is a partnership with Panasonic, but their true entry into making batteries themselves was introduced back in 2020, the 4680 cell. Now, you may have heard a lot about this battery cell at this point, and overall, a lot of the stuff that they promised has not totally come true yet. At that event in 2020, they particularly laid out the most important thing for batteries, a new trajectory for EV battery cost that trends down. The dollars per kilowatt hour had been trending down already, but with their new tech, they wanted to trend this down even further and quicker. Of course, there were many roadblocks here between 2020 and now for the 4680 battery cell. First, Tesla had planned to exclusively ship the Model Y with this battery cell at their two new factories in Berlin and Texas. They would make the batteries in-house and put it directly into the car, which would save a lot on cost. So many were waiting for this next generation vehicle, but it turns out they only made some of them at Giga Texas for a short period of time, and it was a particular standard range all-wheel drive configuration. Today, the second generation of their 4680 battery cell, made entirely in-house, ships exclusively in the Cybertruck. But Elon Musk announced at Tesla's all-hands meeting recently that the 4680 had hit a very important milestone. Now we have gotten a lot more information about this from the employee actually involved with it. Michael Guilfoyle from Tesla said, quote, "Been waiting to acknowledge this great achievement by Tesla's 4680 cell manufacturing team since the end of last year. But as Elon announced last night, our cell manufacturing team in Texas reached a huge milestone at the end of 2024, with becoming the lowest cost per kilowatt-hour battery cell producer for Tesla. The grit, determination, and passion of our team is unbelievable in helping deliver our mission. Big thank you to our entire engineering and production teams for making this happen. It's the greatest honor of my career to lead this team and make such an impact in our mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, and we aren't done yet. 2025 will have more big milestones with fully ramped dry battery electrode manufacturing to deliver even more cost efficiency. Exciting teams continue to be ahead. Cheers to this world-class team." Whether you like it or not, Tesla has continued to be the largest EV maker in the world, which means they use the most EV batteries, and they get most of them from suppliers. As such, they're very familiar with the cost per kilowatt hour is in the industry, and with their 4680 cell, they've actually been able to bring that cost down to below that of suppliers. And these are suppliers who are exclusively making batteries and are very experienced with only making that technology. Then Tesla has come in on the side, working on this since 2020, or arguably quite a bit earlier than that, and they've been able to undercut that cost. Of course, a lot of that probably has to do with their own vertical integration and the fact that they don't have to transport these battery cells from Giga Texas to somewhere else. They make them at Giga Texas and then put them straight into the Cybertruck. But this is a very important big deal. So essentially, Tesla is already at a spot where they make the cheapest batteries that they can source easily. And then with the innovation of this dry electrode technology, they should be able to drive that cost down even more. We know they already made a Cybertruck prototype last year with this dry technology, and it should be something that they can scale up once they actually get there. In fact, reports from March said that Tesla had finally cracked this process and that it would be arriving on the Cybertruck in a couple months. Then the plan is to take this 4680 cell really to the next level by expanding the chemistries that it is built with. This would include things like LFP, LMFP, and high silicon anode cells. So this would do a number of things for a number of different cars. It would allow them to drive down the cost of smaller cars like, say, the Cybercab with an LFP 4680 series battery cell. Then rumors say that the Cybertruck's manufacturing cost would be able to be slashed by about 15% thanks to this dry process, and then utilizing the silicon anode, Tesla would be able to achieve higher density out of these same batteries. So first, that would probably mean that they could make a Cybertruck with the same range, but with less batteries inside of it. But then long term, they could make a Cybertruck with some of those originally promised specs, like a 500-mile range. That, along with the increased price of the Cybertruck, are some reasons why the Cybertruck isn't quite selling as well as Tesla had expected at this point. It's also just a very stark car, and it has become, unfortunately, politically associated. In any case, this could really be the start of some big innovation from Tesla. Of course, we have other companies like BYD working on incredible charging technology, and a lot of people see what they're bringing out of China and think that Tesla is light years behind. In some sense, seeing the new Model Y get refreshed without faster battery technology, at least the ability to have it in the future, is a bit disappointing, because that is their best-selling car, and the best-selling car in the entire world, and we expected they probably needed to future-proof that. For some buyers, they probably would have only bought this car if it had some new battery technology, and they might wait to get it from somebody else. But as I've reiterated a few times now, Tesla is all about scale here. For that battery technology coming from BYD that allows up to 1,000 kilowatt charging, that of course requires incredible infrastructure to actually deliver those charging speeds. It's not like you can take that car out anywhere in China and expect it to charge that quickly. And especially in the United States, Tesla is not at that point. If they made a car that could charge that quickly, I don't think there's anywhere that they could actually charge reliably. And ultimately, none of that really matters if the price of EVs stays the same. Tesla has been, for years, well aware of the problem of cost for electric vehicles. Of course, there's many reasons why these become more affordable for customers. There are various incentives, and when you calculate in all maintenance and gasoline savings that you get with an electric vehicle, for some people, they still make a lot of sense. But for others, they are a cost upgrade, and that's because the battery pack costs so much. So if Tesla in the near future here can actually bring down battery cost by way of these updated 4680 cells that are already cheaper to build and will be cheaper in the future thanks to new technology, it will be the true game changer that allows cheaper EVs to come to market in the United States particularly. There are other companies in the United States that sell EVs for cheaper prices than Tesla sells, but those have not proven to be profitable yet. So nothing really matters because you can't actually scale those up. If these companies truly scale up their cheaper, more affordable EVs, they lose that much more money. For Tesla, they're not going to bring a product to market until they know that it is actually something they can profit off of. For the Cybertruck, we know that they've become profitable on the two trims that they're selling, but it seems like part of the reason we have not seen the rear-wheel drive version of that truck is because they might not be able to do it profitably. Maybe these battery advancements are something that will actually help them to be able to deliver that Cybertruck, especially if this can bring down costs by 15%. If these rumors of a Cybertruck battery pack with a dry electrode tech coming within months are true, that could be actually what comes on the rear-wheel drive Cybertruck. Before we go any further, I want to mention an accessory that is great for all Tesla owners, and that is a screen protector. The screen covers most of what you do in your vehicle, and if anything were to happen to it, it's an expensive repair and one that you absolutely need to have done. That's where a screen protector comes in. A screen protector will protect your screen from scratches or any sort of damage, but on top of that, different versions can also help with glare. A matte screen protector cuts down on direct sunlight glare for better visibility, and then these are easily removable, revealing a pristine screen when you're selling your car or when you simply want to start with a new one. In my view, a screen protector is an essential Tesla accessory, and you can check them out linked for each Tesla vehicle in the description below. Overall, the EV battery world's a very interesting one because it's one where you can get very excited about something like an 800-mile battery being able to be delivered in the future. But if it's not something that they can actually achieve outside of the lab, it doesn't really matter. Usually the actual advancements that we see day to day with scaled EVs aren't too exciting, but over time they really do stack up. Still, I do think a lot of people agree that Tesla is a bit behind in this space. For instance, Lars Moravia at Tesla tweeted saying, "Let's make Teslas better. What do you all want for 2026?" A lot of people suggested a number of easy fixes that Tesla could do either over the air or by tweaking something a little bit at their factory. But people like Dirty Tesla said it's time to get us to 400 or 450 plus miles of EPA range, especially for us people in winter climates and the more expensive vehicles. In real life, our current 300 miles turns to 250 or less on the highway when range matters most, and gets way worse in winter. Kyle Connor also said way faster charging. And then Sawyer Merritt said faster charging and better charging curve. That's because while Tesla is very scaled on these cars and their supercharger network, and both are incredibly reliable, there are other cars that can charge faster, have a better peak charging rate, and a better charging curve. But speaking of that longer range Cybertruck, when Tesla originally announced the Cybertruck, they said that there would be a 400-mile range version of this truck. Of course, when it came to be, it was around 300 miles and even more expensive than that 500-mile range version. But Tesla at the launch event for the Cybertruck talked about a Cybertruck range extender. This was something they actually allowed you to configure when buying a Cybertruck for $16,000. You had to reserve it that day for $2,000, and it was a non-refundable deposit. And this range extender would take your car up to 470 plus miles for dual motor. Then Tesla actually went back and updated this to be 440 or 445 plus miles on the Cybertruck. So already the range on that range extender dropped quite a bit in the configurator itself, and that was probably because Tesla was actually working on this and seeing they couldn't quite achieve the original range they expected. Now this also takes up part of the Cybertruck's bed, so it's not really the best option. There are plenty of other electric trucks out there that deliver very high ranges, and they do so with the normal pack on the floor. So this is a little unfortunate because it gets you that higher range, but actually means that you can't put things in the bed, or at least you only have 2/3 of the previous bed capacity. Still, people were waiting for this option to come to be, and it was already heavily delayed. But this is something that I kind of expected Tesla would never ship. It's a product that just doesn't really align with Tesla's overall philosophy. And maybe they really want to deliver that higher range Cybertruck, but it just doesn't seem like the right way. To deliver it in a range extender in the bed is just nowhere near what they originally promised. So maybe they wouldn't do it in the first place. They have so many other priorities at Tesla, it just didn't seem like something that they would really want to spend their time on. So it was already delayed, and now Tesla has quietly removed this option from the online Cybertruck configurator. At this point, it's unclear if that's because they simply don't want to take any more orders for the time being, or if it's because this is heavily delayed or canceled entirely. The last timeline we saw for this pack from Tesla was mid-2025, so that is coming up in a few months here. If they're not able to achieve that deadline, maybe they're just planning to quietly cancel this. But of course, they will have to refund all of those reservation holders if they never plan to make this product. That's definitely a disappointing thing to see for the Cybertruck, but in my opinion, it does make sense. And I think this could go one of two ways. First, Tesla just never makes this, and the Cybertruck really just tops out at about 300 miles or so. Or Tesla actually plans to go a completely different route and actually announce a 500-mile range Cybertruck or a 440-mile range Cybertruck utilizing the pack on the floor. That would be probably thanks to this new battery technology that should be coming later this year, according to rumor. Maybe first it will help them deliver the rear-wheel drive Cybertruck, but then eventually a longer range version. That's what many hope for, especially if you plan to utilize this for towing, which takes up a lot of your range. But the Cybertruck as a whole is in a precarious position right now because Tesla is scaled up on production, and it seems to be going very well, but it doesn't seem to be going as well as far as orders are concerned. No matter where you live in the United States, if you want to get a Cybertruck, you can probably get one today or tomorrow. They are readily available in all configurations, including Foundation Series. Now, the Foundation Series was that exclusive first edition of the Cybertruck that included a $20,000 upcharge, both to get it early and to get it spec'd out with all of its options. Recent reports have said that Tesla is sitting on 2,400 Cybertrucks in inventory, and this could have increased by now. That's significant inventory for this truck that was expected to be very popular. But as we talked about, there's all those factors as to why this isn't selling quite as well as Tesla had hoped. As such, we're continuing to see Tesla offer the Foundation Series Cybertruck on their website in inventory, and these come with discounts. Here I can see some of them reduced at prices up to $6,270 off, and they now include free supercharging. So these are still the entirely spec'd out Cybertrucks, but they include free supercharging because you're getting Foundation Series, and then they come at significant discounts over what they were just a few months ago. So it's pretty clear at this point that Tesla very much made too many Foundation Series Cybertrucks. That car was exciting for a time for many people, but quickly lost its steam, and now Tesla is having trouble getting the Foundation Series sold. They're sitting on a lot of inventory of this particular exclusive version of the truck, and of course they're offering discounts and things to drive that inventory. So on the other side of things, we now have Tesla doing the same strategy for this new Model Y. They're shipping the Launch Series edition, which they offered exclusively for a few weeks. It was $60,000 in the United States and different pricing across the world, and was the overall spec'd up version of the Model Y with all of its options. Now in the United States, Tesla has removed the Launch Series edition of the Model Y, and instead you can only buy the long-range all-wheel drive version starting at $48,990. When you spec this out with everything you were able to configure on the Model Y in its Launch Series, it actually proves that that Launch Series was a decent price. It's a lot different than the Foundation Series Cybertruck, which included a little bit of cost just for getting it early. Here, if you configure one all the way, it's actually a little more expensive than that Launch Series edition was. But Tesla appears to have learned their lesson from the Foundation Series Cybertruck, and they've already completely stopped production of the Launch Series Model Y. In fact, they've stopped it to the point where they're actually canceling orders for some customers who ordered the Launch Series. Tesla has begun emailing certain reservation holders for the Launch Series saying your Model Y design is no longer available. Update your design to proceed with your order. Of course, order holders are being encouraged to switch to the non-Launch Series that was released recently, and the only way to get a Launch Series now is via any existing inventory. So this is very interesting to see as a different approach from Tesla. Not only are they cutting off the Launch Series, where it probably makes a little more sense, but they're actually cutting it off to the point where they're canceling certain orders. To me, that doesn't really make sense. If they got these orders already and knew that these customers wanted these cars, why didn't they at least see the Launch Series through past that date? This is actually going to lead to some disappointed customers who wanted the Launch Series particularly. In fact, I've seen some customers who ordered as far back as February, saw their delivery pushed back some, and then now are getting their order canceled. In some cases, maybe you'll end up with a cheaper vehicle out the door, but in some cases, if you configured this all the way up, and now you're switching to a non-Launch Series, you might end up with added costs, unless Tesla somehow tries to even that out for customers. We'll have to see how that works. Regardless, it's clear that Tesla doesn't want to be sitting on launch series inventory. So Tesla this week actually canceled two different things, it appears. We're not sure about that range extender yet, but we do know that the launch series is no longer available to order. Basically, probably people who already are scheduled to take delivery of the launch series are the ones that will be getting it, and then everyone else will take the normal Model Y. It's still, of course, a great car, it just doesn't have those trims and doesn't automatically come configured with every option. Next up today, in the midst of the controversy surrounding Tesla and Elon Musk lately, we've seen a number of investment firms maintain their expectations or adjust them accordingly. However, after Tesla announced vehicle deliveries far below expectations, a number of Tesla investors and bulls have recalculated. Some are going lower and some are maintaining or going higher. One of the big ones here, though, is Dan Ives. He's often one of Tesla's biggest proponents. A month ago, though, he warned that patience among Tesla shareholders was wearing thin. And then last week, after Tesla's deliveries were announced, he said, quote, "The street and us knew a bad 1Q was coming, but this was even worse than expected. The time has come for Musk. It's a fork in the road moment. The more political he gets with Doge, the more the brand suffers. There is no debate. This quarter was an example of the damage Musk is causing Tesla. This continues to be a moment of truth for Musk to navigate this brand tornado crisis moment and get onto the other side of this dark chapter for Tesla with much better days ahead." Still, even with this, he didn't actually lower his price target for Tesla and maintained a rating of $550 as a price target. But this week, he finally dropped his Tesla price target from $550 to $315, which is a 43% drop. He said a lot of things, including the demand destruction for Tesla and brand damage is real, and has morphed into something much more concerning over the past few months. The reason for his drop is fewer vehicle deliveries through 2030, which he estimates to be down by a fifth on average. He expects Tesla sales to still increase by 8% annually, but that's instead of 15%. Quote, "We now estimate Tesla has lost/destroyed at least 10% of its future customer base globally, based on self-created brand issues, and this could be a conservative estimate. In Europe, this number could be 20% or higher, all self-inflicted by Musk." Lastly, he said Tesla has unfortunately become a political symbol because of Musk, and this is a very bad thing for the future of this technology stalwart. Now, of course, many Tesla investors would fervently disagree with Dan Ives here, but it's very interesting to see a very big Tesla bull like him changing tune now. It shows that people's patience really is wearing thin here. On the other side of things, though, we have people like Cantor Fitzgerald maintaining an overweight rating for Tesla, meaning that they think Tesla will outperform the industry. And then there's others like Cathie Wood saying long-term they see a price of $2,600 for Tesla, and that's within 5 years. But, of course, this is coming from a Motley Fool article that expects it to drop exceptionally low. They even joke that it could be as low as $26. So none of this is investment advice, but this is what analysts and investors are saying at this point. It's very interesting to see how everyone sees things differently for Tesla. Many expect them to fail quite soon here, while many expect them to soar long term. The piece I'm particularly interested to see unfold is tariffs. It seems that Elon Musk is against tariffs and overall is actually talking against them at this point. And it could be because of things that Dan Ives points out. He says, quote, "The backlash from Trump tariff policies in China and Musk's association will be hard to overstate, and this will further drive Chinese consumers to buy domestic, such as BYD, NIO, Xpeng, and others." So there he's arguing it could hurt Tesla not just in the United States, but actually overseas in China, which is one of their biggest markets. In any case, we'll see how this all shapes up, and I'm curious what Tesla says on their earnings call coming up in a couple weeks. That's all the latest Tesla news for today, so in the meantime, if you want to see full details about Tesla's new, cheaper, long-range, all-wheel drive Model Y, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.